Hello, everyone. It's Alicia Mayo here of Clarity Media. Glad to be back for another reading of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee Report number 1. We're going to get to the reading in just a few. Thank you so much again for joining me here on Clarity Media. We're about human stories and grassroots solutions. It's what I do and what I do best. So thank you again for supporting Clarity Media. If you have questions or comments about the report that's coming up, be sure to include them in the comments stream or in the comments below. If you're joining me on YouTube, if you're joining me on LinkedIn, Facebook, or Twitter, make sure you include your questions or comments so that the committee chair and vice chair can address those questions or comments on a future broadcast, live stream broadcast that's coming up. I will be joined by Chair McDonald and Vice Chair Hollins from the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee so that they can address any questions or comments we have regarding the reparations report number 1 for San Francisco. Yeah, Black San Francisco is asking for reparations and they want them now. What's in the report? Who qualifies for reparations? What's the eligibility? Yeah, all those questions and more will be answered during this reading. So stay tuned. I've got this reading coming up. We left off on page 47, and that's where we're going to pick up at tonight. So thank you again for joining me. Make sure you're sharing this live stream with your friends and family. If you know anyone who is Black and who lives in San Francisco or who lived in San Francisco once upon a time, make sure you're sharing this information with them, because a lot of folks don't know that they qualify for reparations. Yeah, Black folks, we just get on with our lives. You know, we go to work, we go to school, we take care of our families, we take care of ourselves, and, you know, we're making sure that we're contributing to society as we always have from the day that we were brought here on this land. That's what we've always done. And we don't expect anything for free. We work for everything. And reparations is not just about a dollar amount, because believe me, $5 million is not nearly enough to cover and to take care of and to meet the level of life, blood, sweat, and tears that were shed and lost as our ancestors and as our relatives worked the land and worked in these businesses and gave their lives to build this country. $5 million is not all that San Francisco is asking for. They're asking for so much more, and it's all here in this 60 pages of report number 1 of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee report. This report was developed at the request of Secretary of State of California, Dr. Shirley Weber, and the Governor of California, Gavin Newsom, and others, including the Vice President of the United States. They all want to know why San Francisco believes that they are due reparations. Black San Franciscans feel they are due reparations today, and they are proving their case in this first report. The second report is expected to be released in June. That's coming up. And there's a huge rally taking place. That's coming up March 17th. Let me put that on the screen here for you, because I really think you should participate. I think if you're interested in this, if you love Black people, if you love me, you need to be at the rally. I'm sorry, I said March 17th. It's Tuesday, March 14th. Let your voice be heard. Just before this Board of Supervisors in San Francisco will hold their hearing to consider the draft report and the reparations plan, as well as the Dreamkeeper Initiative updates, all presented by Supervisor of District 10, Shaman Walton. At 12 noon, the reparations rally will begin on the steps of City Hall. At 3 p.m., a special Board of Supervisors hearing will be taking place at San Francisco City Hall, room 250. You can join us in person or join us via Zoom. The meeting ID is there on the screen, or call in to participate at area code 415-665-0001. And I think if you have any more questions, you can reach out to the Reparations Committee. And their address is www.sfreparations.org. And again, that address to reach out to the San Francisco Reparations Committee is www.sfreparations.org. For any further questions, again, let your voices be heard. If you support reparations for Black San Franciscans, show up on the steps of San Francisco City Hall Tuesday, March 14th at 12 noon for the reparations rally. And then at 3 p.m., a special Board of Supervisors hearing will take place at San Francisco City Hall in room 250. You can join us in person. If you can't make it in person, you can join us on Zoom. And the meeting ID is there. It's meeting ID 2497-265-2335 pound. Or you can call in at area code 415-665-0001. Founder of Clarity Media. Let me say hello to everyone out there tuning in for tonight's reading. I am on the 5th reading now. I've been here reading on some weekday nights. Hello, everyone. And I've been reading this report, number 1, submitted and published by the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee, as they are proving the case for Black San Francisco to receive reparations in some form or fashion. And yes, for those of you who have heard, they are asking for $5 million, but that's not all they're asking for. And if you ask me, $5 million is not enough. It's not enough. I was born and raised in San Francisco. I'm a San Francisco native. Some folks don't want to hear that, but I'm a San Francisco native. I was born and raised in San Francisco, and I know the stories of my grandparents, and I know all of the work that was involved in the families and the individuals who came to San Francisco to have a better way of life, a better living, and did everything that they needed to do to make that happen. They worked hard. They worked extremely hard in San Francisco, and they did not receive equal treatment, equal pay, equal opportunities for housing, equal opportunities in healthcare, and more. Okay. So If you're interested in this report and you want to learn more and you want to read the report yourself, just go visit www.sfreparations.org and check out the menu there. The drop down will take you to several places on the website there, including a link to register for all of the public meetings that the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's having. They're having regular meetings. They're still holding listening sessions, and they're opening the meetings up to the members of the public so that you can make your comments, you can ask questions, and have some of your concerns or questions be addressed live during their committee meetings. So that's just one way that the advisory committee is involving the public. And this is my way of educating and informing everyone out there about what's happening with San Francisco reparations. Lots of questions are swirling around. Who qualifies? How much are they asking for? How long, did I need to live in San Francisco in order to qualify? And what if I don't live in San Francisco anymore? All of those questions will be answered and can be answered by either reading the report or listening to me read the report. So the last time I was with you, we were on page 47. We'll pick up on page 47 here. There are some 60 pages in this first report. The second report is expected to be released to the public in June, and I will continue to read through that. But first, let's just acknowledge that we want to acknowledge our Mother Earth that gives us life. We want to acknowledge the nourishment and all of the great partnership with Mother Earth. We act with reverence, respect, and reciprocity in all that we do. And we acknowledge the first peoples who have lived and thrived on these lands for thousands of years and who have kept this sacred relationship alive for all of humanity here in the Bay Area and in California. We also acknowledge the Ohlone Indians and the African American people who have been living on these lands since time immemorial. Okay. Yeah, we can theorize, but we know that Africans and Indians have been on this land, okay, a long time. They were the original inhabitants, and we must acknowledge those people. They've been living on this land and toiling and keeping the land. And, a lot of us humans today have squandered that away, but we cannot move forward unless we know where we've come from. Once we acknowledge where we've come from, then I think we can better appreciate what we have and what we can have, right? We acknowledge all of our ancestors that have walked and stewarded these lands before us, and those that continue to walk with us on this journey to a more harmonious world. We acknowledge our responsibilities to think of those yet to come, our children and grandchildren, and to leave them a world that is capable of providing an abundant life. With love in our hearts, we say mercy. Thank you. We acknowledge the indigenous Indians and the Africans who were forcefully removed from their native lands and dispersed across the New World. This involuntary relocation and forced migration heavily contributed to the movement of African and Indian descended people across the diaspora and the Americas. And here we are today to acknowledge and analyze and discuss the harm and the repair in the form of reparations, and how to make amends to right the wrongs of social injustice or war against these people. There's a long history of harm, and therefore reparations must happen, and they can take many forms depending on who is demanding and the repair. Okay, and so Black San Franciscans are demanding the repair, and the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee is tackling the important issues and needs your involvement to develop policy recommendations and to make your voices heard. So if you can participate by supporting the committee and the people, Black people of San Francisco, by showing up on this date, March 14th at Tuesday. That's a Tuesday, to let your voices be heard. The hearing on the draft reparations plan and the Dreamkeeper Initiative updates will take place, presented by Supervisor of District 10, Shimon Walton. Please join us at 12 noon for the rally that begins on the steps of City Hall, and continue with the support and making your voices heard at 3 p.m. during the special Board of Supervisors hearing at San Francisco City Hall in room 250. If you can't join us in person, you can join us via Zoom. There's the meeting ID number there. It's 2497-265-2335 pound, okay? Or you can call in. You can call in live on your cell phone, and the number you want to call is area code 415-665-0001. If you have any comments or questions, please add your comments or questions here in my comments. If you're joining me on YouTube, if you're on LinkedIn, Facebook, or on Twitter, add the comments there. I will be checking those comments and passing them along to the chair and the vice chair of the Reparations Advisory Committee, because they are expected to be joining us at a later or a future date in the near future. Okay. In the near future, they will be joining us to answer any questions or to address any concerns that you have. Okay, so without further ado, let's get on to reading the report. We're on page 47. So let me add the pages to our live stream here. Okay, and I will fast forward to page 47. Yeah, we've been through a lot so far. We're on page 47, and we will I will try to read through page 57. Okay, and we'll see how far we can get. Okay, so here we are on page 47. Let's start at the top on objective 3, to create safer public spaces through improvements to the built environment. The actions that the Reparations Advisory Committee is asking for on behalf of the public as well include create and improve and allocate culturally specific Black spaces that rebuild and revitalize social relationships, social networks, infrastructure of social support. 3.2, revitalize San Francisco public housing sites to ensure safe, updated, livable housing conditions for all residents. Introduce land use controls, and to reduce the number of liquor stores, dispensaries, and fast food restaurants in Black communities, and prioritize incentives and access to fresh food and full service grocery stores. Objective 4, address persistent issues in environmental and community health. 4.1, declare community violence as a public health crisis and fund resources for effective interventions. Address health impacts specific to harm caused by radiological and toxic chemical contaminants from the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard operations upon the Bayview Hunters Point community residents across generations and over the decades since the opening of the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard by taking the following actions. Fund and sustain biomonitoring testing services for community residents of Hunters Point in that biomonitoring program, and maintain a community toxic registry. Fund and operate local health clinics to provide healthcare, nutrition, and mental health services for impacted residents, showing above references, range levels of the radiological and toxic chemical contaminants, correlated respiratory disease and cancers, and other health impacts as uncovered by during the toxic exposure and the science under the science regulations and protocols and initiatives. Fund and maintain air monitoring services across San Francisco neighborhoods, including Treasure Island, specifically addressing the environmental justice communities of pollution and environmental toxins assaulted communities as identified by Cal EnviroScreen. Align environmental justice curriculum into our school programs and offer similar pedagogy for adult learning to advance awareness and advocacy. Align with culturally competent mental health redress as environmental injustices place undue stress upon communities. Align with California State Bill 1000 and the San Francisco General Plan for Environmental Justice Framework policy development, and support findings and recommendations of the 2021-22 Civil Grand Jury Report, Buried Problems and Buried Process, the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard in a Time of Climate Change, and the actions identified within the report, for example, holding accountability for the ongoing remediation and 100% cleanup of the Hunters Point Naval Shipyard, and particularly actions as they relate to climate change, sea level, and groundwater rise and risk imposed on the shoreline communities, again identified as environmental justice communities by Cal EnviroScreen. Objective 5, we're on page 48 now. Thank you for joining me here on the reading of report number 1 of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's report number 1. The second report is coming up in June, so I'm trying to get you guys caught up here. We're on objective 5 on page 48. Reduce the ongoing burden of stress disparately endured by Black San Franciscans. The actions include provide reparations, direct payments to Black San Franciscans to alleviate the stress and anxiety caused by financial insecurity. Provide free mental health, prenatal care, and rehabilitation treatment to all Black San Franciscans living below the poverty line, victims of violent crimes, previously incarcerated Black San Franciscans, high crime area residents, and substance abuse users. Okay. Provide free testing for residents near environmentally toxic environments and financial compensation for those testing positive for illness due to exposure. We're at the top of page 49, policy. Objective 1, address the historical and existing state policies that have disproportionately harmed San Francisco's African American communities. The actions should include generate local political support to repeal Proposition 209, which through eliminating government-funded affirmative action programs has been attributed to significant decreases in African American participation across higher education, public employment, government procurement, and other things. The rationale for this is Proposition 209 has created a dynamic that prevents legislators from crafting policy that directly addresses issues that specifically affect certain racial groups. 1.2, in alignment with the AB 3121 interim report, repeal Article 34 of the California Constitution. And the rationale for this is Article 34 is a state constitutional provision that requires cities to get voter approval before building housing with public funds. It has been attributed to slowing down efforts to integrate suburbs across the state. California is the only state whose constitution explicitly prevents public housing. Let me say that again. California is the only state whose constitution explicitly prevents public housing. Interesting. 1.3, address potential remedies to Proposition 13, which has frozen commercial and residential property tax assessments. The rationale for this, Though framed as an incentive to California property owners, the loss of tax revenue spurred by Proposition 13 has contributed significantly to the growing racial wealth gap and the housing shortage across the state, both of which disproportionately affect African American communities. But by abolishing this, I'll say personally, by abolishing or changing the remedies, hopefully won't affect those African American homeowners who benefited from Proposition 13. So we're on 1.4, audit war on drugs era policies, also known as the one strike rule, that prevented African American San Franciscans from accessing public housing and other housing related subsidies because of their records. Okay, so we're on page 50 now at the top. Objective 2, enforce existing local policies that are ostensibly designed to address historical harms. So they're asking for enforcement of existing local policies that are designed to address historical harms. And the actions they're asking should include the use of the city's existing slavery disclosure ordinance, Section 12Y of the Administrative Code, to hold private companies who have economically benefited from chattel slavery financially accountable for their harmful legacy by mandating contributions to the special fund established by the ordinance. And the rationale for this is, though the city requires annual disclosures from companies who participated in the slave trade, contributions to those to the special fund are currently voluntary. A mandatory contribution proportional to the company's size and revenue could be used to offset the cost of implementing a comprehensive African American reparations effort. 2.2, and that's important there. Okay, so look up that SDO, Section 12Y of the Administrative Code, the Slavery Disclosure Ordinance. Now we're on 2.2, enforce all existing and future development agreements and community benefits agreements that developers have proposed as a condition of project approval. The rationale for this, development community benefits agreements have often made lofty promises to neighborhoods to address stakeholder concerns and impacts during the approval process, but they are rarely fully recognized after the developments are completed. And these commitments need to be enforced by city agencies to mitigate the negative impacts that new development can impose on the community, and developers should face fines and other penalties if they are not upheld. The Office of Community Investment and Infrastructure, also known as OCII, will be conducting an audit of all agreements made since 1948 to determine if they have been upheld or not. And the results of this study should be made public, and the private actors who run afoul of it should be held accountable for their unfulfilled promises to the communities. I'm Alicia Mayo of Clarity Media, thanking everyone who's tuned in. If you have missed any of the earlier readings of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's report, number 1, you can go to my YouTube channel. If you're with me on Facebook here, just check out my Facebook page timeline. You'll find the previous recordings there as well. Like I said, on YouTube, on Twitter, and on LinkedIn, on one of your favorite social media platforms. In other words, yes, you'll find the earlier readings there. And thank you again for joining me here on Clarity Media, Human Stories and Grassroots Solutions. We're on page 50. And let's see here. We are on the second paragraph of 2.2. The Office of, we're on 2.3 already, okay? Create better systems and communication channels to ensure that certificate of preference holders are prioritized in housing and made aware of all options available to them through the OCII program and other relevant city agencies. Objective 3. Work with the full African American Reparations Advisory Committee to develop a suite of prioritized, actionable policy recommendations to advocate for immediately. Objective 4. Create a nonpartisan body and or a new city agency to ensure the successful implementation of reparations policy recommendations after this body sunsets in June. And 4.1, introduce a reparations tax to partially offset additional costs necessary to fund this infrastructure. Recommendations at a glance. And that's at the bottom of page 50. And I think you can, again, you can go to sfreparations.org and you can check out this report number 1 on page 50. And you can tap on the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee recommendations at a glance. You can tap on there and get the recommendations at a glance there just by tapping on, by going on live, going on to the website and checking out the report yourself. And that, again, was on page 50. So let's move on to page 51 now. We're at the top where it reads addendum, a history of broken promises, past city commissions and reports on San Francisco's Black communities highlight systemic issues but inspired little government action. Multiple reports have been created over the past decades to examine the socioeconomic well-being of San Francisco's Black communities. These reports each provide policy recommendations that offer a number of pathways to better outcomes across a range of indicators. These studies have been released since 1993 and have been met with varying degrees of success, but often received lackluster political attention and funding. Because of this, the racial disparities that were documented through quantitative data and qualitative experiences continue to negatively impact the livelihood of thousands of San Francisco residents. Within the unfinished agenda, the economic status of African Americans in San Francisco, the Committee on African American Parity of the Human Rights Commission of San Francisco created a report that analyzes the economic well-being of the Black San Franciscans through the collection of quantitative data and personal narratives. This study intended to take a detailed look at the comparative social, economic, health, and educational status of African Americans in San Francisco. To create a thorough and comprehensive investigation, the CAAP focused their research on the following 8 issue areas: employment and entrepreneurship, education, criminal justice, housing, health services, media relations, political empowerment, African American families. In this methodology, the CAAP used data from the U.S. Census between 1960 and 1990. The committee also utilized special studies of minority-owned businesses developed by the U.S. Department of Commerce, the Association of Bay Area Government data, and CAP also research they have research papers on housing issues and reports on the state of race relations issued by the San Francisco Conference of Religion, Race, and Social Concerns of the Catholic Diocese, published in 1968. Local and national newspapers, magazine articles, information from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, annual reports from the National Urban League on the State of Black America, and data from the San Francisco Department of City Planning, also the San Francisco Redevelopment Agency, the Human Rights Commission, the California Department of Social Services, the San Francisco Police Department, the San Francisco Fire Department, and in addition, multiple interviews were conducted with African American leaders and historical figures in the Black community to understand the human impact of programs and initiatives in the San Francisco community. We're at the top of page 52 now. Okay, so let me get you caught up here on screen. Sorry about that. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm Alicia Mayo of Clarity Media, the CEO and founder. I'm going to I'm going to take a quick little break because I've been reading. Excuse me for smacking. Sorry. I'm going to take a quick break while I wet my whistle. And I am going to play some station identification and a little, let's see, station identification. Maybe I'll include a little bit of a break with some music from a local artist. And then I'll be back to continue the reading of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee report number 1. What's in the report? Who qualifies for reparations? That's what we're talking about here tonight. Reparations for Black San Francisco. And thank you again for joining me here on Clarity Conversations. I'm Alicia Mayo, CEO, founder of Clarity Media. Tonight is all about San Francisco reparations unlocked. What do we know? Have you read the report? Who qualifies? If you've got questions and more, I'm coming back with more in just a few. So make sure you're sharing this with friends and family who might possibly be eligible for reparations in San Francisco. I'll be back with more. Stay tuned.
If you'd like to be a guest or suggest show ideas, drop us an email or a direct message. We'd love to hear from you. Clarity Media, human stories, grassroots solutions. Subscribe, like, follow, and share. The Bay Area Mental Health Hour, Clarity Conversations, and We the People. Building trust for the first time. Out of chaos comes clarity. Clarity Media.
Drip lit like a spot. Just winning. Media life spinning. Media life spinning.
Hi, my name is Taylor. I'm the founder of Taylor J Collection. We are a women's contemporary clothing brand located right here in Oakland, California. The journey of a woman comes with many changes, and that's why we are very intentional about all of our designs and collections. We make sure to provide elevated comfort, sustainability, versatility, and of course, style. If you're in the Bay Area, come by, say hi, and take some comfy pieces home to add to your closet. Shop with us online at taylorjcollection.com.
Pushing on the way to the sound of my own drum. I've learned I've gotta be a fan of, my own rhythm. If you can't see the greatness in me, I don't know what you see. If you do not believe in me, I'm asking you to leave. You got to face it. Yeah, it's time you acknowledge all of my greatness. I gotta be aware of who I let in, cause some people mentality is limiting. If you can't see me as great, you focus on the flaws, and I've been showing the good and bad front of all of y'all. I gotta be aware of those that be writing them bad spells. The words used to speak on my life make heaven or hell. I was stuck, but now I'm up, leveling up, living it up, showing myself pushing on the way to the sound of my own drum. I've learned I've gotta be a fan of, yeah, my own rhythm. If you can't see the greatness in me, I don't know what you see. If you do not believe in me, I'm asking you to leave. You can't see what you've done to me. Yes, I disagree. There's way more to me. I'm leveling up and you've got to face it. Yeah, it's time you acknowledge all of my greatness.
Hey everybody, Alicia here. Thank you for joining me. I'm Alicia Mayo, CEO and founder of Clarity Media. So happy that you're joining me as I continue reading report number 1 of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's report to justify and prove why Black San Franciscans deserve reparations. And the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee is tackling those subjects and more for Black San Francisco. It's long overdue, right? Every city has the opportunity to fight for what they feel they deserve, right? And so San Francisco's doing that. They're stepping up to the plate. And I believe that San Francisco will get the largest settlement for reparations in the United States history. I believe that. I believe that that will happen for Black San Franciscans, that Black San Francisco will be the first largest settlement for Blacks in the country. Okay. And I think everybody else who is Black in the United States, who have ancestry of, slaves who were building this country, who worked for free, and you related to those folks, just like some relatives of other folks who didn't work and got stuff, like just got it handed to them. Well, we worked for it. Our people worked for it, and we continue to work for less than what we deserve, right? That's what I believe. These are my personal opinions. Now, whatever you believe is what you believe. Now, because we have different views and different feelings does not mean that a debt is still not owed. It does not mean that. It means that we have different opinions, okay? And how the debt is paid, how it is repaired, how the harm is repaired, and not just by dollars. It depends on who's asking for it, right? I included in the acknowledgement at the beginning, at the top of the show. If you missed it, you can play this back. I will keep this on the platforms, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. But the harm was done. We're as African Americans, we're all affected in some way or another, indirectly and directly. Still today, there are still injustices. There's still harm that is happening. And so, yeah, it's got to be repaired and done. It's got to be taken care of. Things have to be changed, and they have to be changed immediately. And so San Francisco Black residents are fed up and they're tired, and they've been doing the work along with the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. They've been doing the work to make the case for reparations in San Francisco. Wow. 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 I just want to give a shout out to the Reparations Advisory Committee for the work that they are doing for Black San Francisco. I want to acknowledge, those, all of the committee members. And I think there are 11 committee member chairs or subcommittees. There are 11 subcommittees within the committee, I should say. And there is a chair of the committee and the vice chair. And within the subcommittees, there are chairs of each subcommittee or committee leads in the subcommittees and the committee members. Okay. And they're all doing and have done great work. And they continue to hold public meetings where you can participate, you can make your voice heard, and you can, be a part of making history for Black San Francisco. Definitely be a part of it. Definitely be a part of it. You want to be a part of it. I'm trying to get my graphics together here so that I can share some more information, about what I'm doing here tonight. So, it's Alicia Mayo, just thanking everyone here. I'm here to cover San Francisco reparations. What's in the report? Who qualifies for reparations? Why does Black San Francisco why do they feel they deserve reparations? The first report is 60 pages, maybe a little over 60 pages. Yeah, I think it's over 60 pages. Let's see. It's about 60 pages long. And you can read the report by going to the website. Let me include that on the screen. Go to sfreparations.org. It's there on the screen. You can read the report yourself, and it's there on that website. And you can just take your time through the report to try and understand it as much as you can. If you have questions, I expect the chair and the vice chair to join us maybe next week to answer any questions, to hear any comments that you might have regarding this. So include your comments and questions in the comments there, wherever you're watching. And I'll be sure to collect those comments and questions, and I'll share them with the chair and the vice chair of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. And then in June, the second report will be released. And in that report, they will include more information about what they're asking for Black San Franciscans on behalf of those folks. Yep. So let me take this off the screen now. Again, I'm Alicia Mayo, the founder and CEO of Clarity Media. Clarity Media is nonprofit media. Okay. I provide media services, including video and audio production services, digital marketing services, and technical literacy to help you understand how to use technology to improve your business reach and engagement through marketing and advertising and productions, through live streaming and content building and content awareness, brand awareness, and all of that. That's what I specialize in. That's what I went to school for. That's what I've studied. And that's what I have more than 35 years of experience doing. So reach out to me here at Clarity Media. Let me find one of the email addresses here where you can reach out to me. I'm happy to help. If you have any concerns or you have any ideas about your business and what you'd like to do with your business, just reach out to me at claritymedia.org. I'll be more than happy to help. And so let's continue now with the reading of the reparations report number 1. We left off on page 52. And so let me bring this to the screen there. There we are. Okay. We are at the top of page 52. The committee faced difficulty in obtaining some data, experienced delays in receiving data, and at times questioned whether data from the same sources like the U.S. Census were comparable. Because terminology and definitions changed over time, the group attempted to identify data gaps and use the information to the best of their ability. From this pool of information, the CAAP made a series of observations. Number 1, the African American population has decreased in size. the number of African Americans in San Francisco reached a peak of 88,343, or 13.4% of the city's population in 1970. Since that time, the African American community has declined absolutely and proportionately. By 1990, there were 76,343 African American residents, or 10.9% of the overall population. The African American population is getting older, and there are fewer children under the age of 18 years. African American population, which used to be the second largest ethnic group in San Francisco after whites, are now the fourth largest group. Asians comprise the second largest group, and Latinos the third. The shift in San Francisco economy from manufacturing to services displaced African American workers beginning soon after the end of World War II and continuing to the present. The income of African Americans compared to that of white San Franciscans has declined since 1970 from a high of 60.1% to 45.1% in 1990. The income of African Americans compared to that of other non-white ethnic groups in the city indicates that Asian Americans have higher per capita in household income than African Americans, and Latinos have slightly lower per capita incomes, but higher household incomes than African Americans as well. African Americans suffer higher rates of poverty and unemployment and have higher levels of dependency in San Francisco. African Americans are greatly underrepresented in many job titles in the private sector. African Americans have benefited from the consent decrees addressing the hiring and promotional policies of the fire department and police department, even though they have not fully met the goals of the numbers of African Americans hired by the police department and the fire department. Many African Americans have been pushed out of the city by a combination of governmental programs like urban renewal and the high cost of housing. At one point, rental cost, which had been reasonable until 1979 or 1980, escalated until they reached almost 90% of the per capita income of African Americans in 1985. Traditionally, Black communities like Bayview Hunters Point are becoming more integrated as a result of the net out migration of African Americans, greater desegregation in the housing market for African Americans, and the increased competition for housing in those communities. The African American community is becoming increasingly bifurcated as working class, moderate income Blacks are migrating out of San Francisco, leaving behind one group of higher income, more educated African Americans who are dispersed throughout the city, and another group of lower income, more dependent, and less economically competitive African Americans who are concentrated in public housing and other federally subsidized housing. It's the haves or the have-nots. Unfortunately, the middle class is completely wiped out as a result of all of the policies. The average, we're on number 13 on page 53. Number 13 on page 53. The average level of education of African Americans is increasing. The percentage of African American residents of San Francisco reporting that they had completed four or more years of college was twice as large in 1990 as in 1980. Yeah, because we know what we need to do. Was one attempt. The urban, we're on page number 14. Excuse me, y'all. Some of this stuff, it's personal. It's hitting me personal, deep in my bones. And so, yeah, I'm adding my 2 cents, and my 2 cents matters. Okay, just saying. Okay, number 14. The Urban Renewal Program in the Western Edition destroyed the economic base of Black on small businesses in that part of the city. Okay, so urban renewal destroyed the economic base of Black businesses small Black businesses in that part of the city, the Western Addition. Um, and the number and the size of Black-owned businesses in San Francisco continued to decrease between 1982 and 1987, and before that. Yes. hmm My mother's business was one of them, and my brother's. Number 16, San Francisco's public agencies are not meeting the minority business enterprise and women's business enterprise contracting goals established by the Human Rights Commission. A study commissioned by the city subsequent to Richard versus Croson indicates that the extent of undercontracting is indicative of discrimination in a number of instances. And based on these observations, the committee created 12 goals and 5 policy initiatives to guide the development of the Black community over the next decade. The goals are as follows. Number 1, to halt or reverse the decline in the size of the African American population in San Francisco, to increase per capita and or household income in the African American community, to raise the income of African American individuals and families with the lowest incomes above the poverty level, to create jobs and job opportunities that fit the full range of skills within the African American community, from entry level to those requiring technical skills and professional training, to increase the employability and employment of African American males, to increase the number of economic viability of African American entrepreneurs and businesses, and to increase the level of human capital in the African American community. Number 8, to increase access to capital for entrepreneurs, to provide access to protected or captive markets for goods and services provided by African Americans, to preserve and or increase the level of capital and wealth in the African American community, to increase community cohesion and strengthen identity, to increase the community's political power and influence on public policy. Based on these goals, the following policy initiatives were created: a commitment to setting racial equity goals and establishing benchmarks to ensure that goals are being met, using placemaking as a principle to establish and invest in an African American cultural, let's see. Cultural district in the city. Okay. So my pages are out of order here, and it's got me wondering, but let me go on. We're on number 3 on page 54. I'll figure this out in just a second here. Let's continue with number 3. Establish an African American Development Foundation and fund it through tax revenue. Seek matching funds from banks and local corporations. Promote alternatives to incarceration and oppose construction of additional jails and prisons. Establish vocational programs in jails and in conjunction with programs offering alternatives to incarcerations. In addition to these initiatives, the CAAP report created recommendations for employment and training and housing. Employment and training recommendations: negotiate training and hiring goals and subcontracting goals in conjunction with nonprofit and for-profit developments in the city, including UCSF, Mission Bay, SFO, Navy Yard, Presidio, the port, San Francisco Port, etc. Aggressive recruitment and increase affirmative action hiring in targeted areas of municipal employment, especially in executive levels of municipal agencies. Seek improvements in the scope and effectiveness of vocational training programs in public schools and link training to job placement. Establish training programs for African American entrepreneurs. Now, onto the housing recommendations on page 54. We're in the middle of page 54. Negotiate a commitment to increase lending to African American homebuyers and entrepreneurs on the part of banks and other lending institutions. preserve and enhance African American equity in real estate through purchase of rights of first refusal and or reverse annuity mortgages with African American homeowners. Analyze benefits and liabilities of public housing private privatization and or tenant management programs. D, encourage development of affordable housing with land write-downs and sweat equity participation. This report heavily focused on quantitative data compared to a more human-centered narrative approach. While this strategy is effective effective to diagnose existing problems within the community, it fails to engage with culturally relevant solutions that are in line with community values. Though some community insight was gained through the conversations with Black leaders of San Francisco, the perspective of residents most proximally affected by the phenomenon studied by the CAP was largely absent. In other words, the perspectives of the residents who are most affected was largely absent. In addition, this report saw limited action because of a lack of support from political leadership, funding sources, and enforcement agencies. As a result, the status quo remained largely unchanged until now. Thank goodness. Now, this report is going to help to repair and change all of these previous actions that have taken place to harm Black San Franciscans and that did not support Black San Franciscans. All that I read here on page 54. If you'd like to get some context around what I just read, please feel free to visit sfreparations.org to get some more information. Let me include that web address again for the San Francisco Reparations Advisory Committee's report number 1 that I'm reading through. There it is, scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Visit sfreparations.org to get some context on what I just read and the rest of the readings that you may or may not have missed. You can read the report yourself there, download all 60 pages of report number 1, or you can just go to YouTube or LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, whatever you prefer, and look for Alicia Mayo or Clarity Media and tap on the links when you find me or Clarity Media and just listen to me read the reports if you don't want to go through reading all of that yourself. That's why I'm here and that's why I'm doing that. And again, if you'd like to read the report yourself and get a copy of it yourself, please visit sfreparations.org online and go to the menu and the drop down and just search for the report. There's a link there that will connect you to that. If you can't download it, you can tune in to my readings. I'm on the 6th reading. We're on page 54 of 60 pages. Yeah, so we're moving right along. And the report, the second report number 2, that will be released in June. I will read through that as well. And hopefully we'll have some explanations and some opportunities to ask questions with the chair and the vice chair of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. I'm Alicia Mayo, joining you here all tonight. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're watching, thank you so much for watching. I'm here to unlock the mysteries around the San Francisco Reparations Report and what they're asking for. What do we know about this report? Who qualifies? Have you read the report? If you've got any of these questions, hopefully some of your questions are being answered tonight with the reading of the report, and or some of them can be answered by you reading the report. I really do recommend that you read the report yourself to really get a clear understanding. If you have to look up some of these words like I have, that's what you need to do. Hopefully you can understand what they're talking about. They're talking about more than just $5 million in the report, that's for sure. And if you'd like to support Black San Francisco as we rally to make our voices heard, please show up. Let your voice be heard. Let your Let your voice be heard. Let your voices be heard. Bring your family and friends, for, you know, for anyone who qualifies for reparations in San Francisco, for anyone who thinks they may qualify for reparations in San Francisco, you need to be at this rally on Tuesday, March 14th at 12 noon on the steps of San Francisco City Hall. You need to be there because we will hear everything that we need to hear. We'll have many of these questions answered, and we will know what is to be expected. We'll, understand more about what the future holds for Black San Franciscans, because supervisor of District 10, the Bayview Hunters Point, and the former president of the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, Supervisor Shimon Walton, will be there to speak to us, to let us know what is happening. And we want to support him in his efforts, along with the committee members, the subcommittee leads, the chair and the vice chair, and the Reverend Amos Brown and Secretary of State Shirley Weber. We want to support anybody, and Governor Gavin Newsom as well. We want to support anyone who supports reparations for Black folks in San Francisco. So be there on Tuesday, March 14th at 12 noon for the rally, and then at 3 p.m. for the special Board of Supervisors hearing that will happen there at City Hall in room 250 at 3 p.m. Join in person. If you can't make it in person, join us on Zoom. The Zoom link, our meeting ID is there. It's 2497-265-2335 pound. Or you can call in on your cell phone. You can call area code 415-665-0001. I'm going to leave that up for just a second here as I prepare to continue the last part of the reading of reparations report number 1. Okay, so check this out, information out. All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning into Clarity Media. Alicia Mayo here, reading report number 1 of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's report. What is in the report? Who qualifies for reparations? How much are they asking for? Can they really get it? Well, they're explaining it. They're explaining how they're going to get it. And one way or another, they're going to get it. I don't know. Let's hope that it happens this year. I'm a San Francisco resident, a longtime resident, born and raised in San Francisco. Lots of my family members who are still here are, we're, excuse me, we're all waiting. We're all waiting to see the report number 2. And whether or not it includes everything that we asked for during the public listening sessions and the public hearings. And the meetings are still happening. They're still ongoing. The Reparations Advisory Committee still meeting, still accepting recommendations, and still allowing questions and comments from the public who are who stand to benefit from reparations in San Francisco. The meeting links can be found on the website. Visit sfreparations.org. Look for the drop down on meetings, Reparations Advisory Committee meetings and dates, and then go to each meeting and tap on the meeting links. Make sure you register so that you get the notification sent to you right before the meetings happen, so that you get a chance to participate and you are being reminded with the notifications there. That's what I recommend. I also recommend that you read the report yourself. You don't have to listen to me read the report. We're on page 54 right now, so let's continue. I just have a few more minutes before I say good night. Let's see. So we left off in the middle of, in the middle of page 54 at employment and training recommendations. So in addition to these initiatives, there was a report that recommended some employment and training and housing recommendations. And they include negotiate training and hiring goals and subcontracting goals in conjunction with nonprofit and for-profit developments in the city, including UCSF, Mission Bay, SFO, Navy Yard, Presidio, et cetera. They want to aggressively recruit and increase affirmative action hiring in targeted areas of municipal employment, especially in executive levels of municipal agencies. They want to seek improvements in the scope and effectiveness of vocational training programs in the public schools and link training to job placement, establish training programs for African American entrepreneurs as well. Housing recommendations. Negotiate a commitment to increase lending to African American home buyers, entrepreneurs on the part of banks and other lending institutions. Preserve and enhance African American equity in real estate through purchase of rights of first refusal and or reverse annuity mortgages with African American homeowners. Analyze benefits and liabilities of public housing, privatization and or tenant management programs, encourage development of affordable housing with land write-downs, and sweat equity participation. This report heavily focused on quantitative data compared to a more human-centered narrative approach. While this strategy is effective to diagnose existing problems within the community, it fails to engage with culturally relevant solutions that are in line with community values. So there's been some other work, other reports done, and the committee found that there are still a lot of need. They named a few that they're concerned about. And in addition to this report, they saw limited action because of the lack of support from political leadership in the past, funding sources, and enforcement agencies. And as a result, the status quo remained largely unchanged. This directly affected the quantity of Black residents that had the ability to remain in the city and the quality of life for Black residents that did stay in the city. Okay. It's tough. We all know that. Okay, so let's go on to page 55. In 2009, another report was conducted to examine and provide recourse for the continual displacement of African Americans from San Francisco, known as the Report of the San Francisco Mayor's Task Force on African American Outmigration. Mayor Gavin Newsom, along with Supervisor Sophie Maxwell, created a special committee in order to find solutions for Black out-migration and preserve city diversity. The report was intended to be used by city departments, community-based organizations, and advisory committee groups to improve the quality of life for African Americans in San Francisco. Mayor Newsom cited that hundreds of disparity reports have been created in the past, and that this task force would be different in identifying viable solutions to reverse the 3-decade trend of Black displacement, with a focus on housing, education, jobs, and economic development, including public safety and quality of life, art, and cultural life. The committee created its recommendations for action. In the data collection process, task force members worked with the San Francisco State University research team and the San Francisco Community Development and Redevelopment agencies to examine and analyze trends. In addition, the team interviewed African Americans who both left and remained in San Francisco. And lastly, the task force identified trends and policy strategies in cities that saw increases in the Black population, while the Black demographic in San Francisco declined. From the collection of qualitative and quantitative data, the task force members distilled 6 key findings from the period 1990 to 2005, and they are: there was a disproportionate decline in the number of African American families compared to non-African American families. As the number of middle and upper middle income households decreased in 1990, the percentage of very low income households increased from over 1/2 of African American households in 1990 to over 2/3 in 2005. Number 3, in 2000, 1/4 of African Americans lived in poverty, more than twice the number of non-African Americans. The unemployment rate among African Americans in the labor force from 1990 to 2005 was consistently over twice that of non-African Americans. From 1997 to 2002, African American owned businesses declined by nearly 1/4, and African American business receipts fell by 60.7%, although the number of people employed by African American businesses increased. The proportion of homeowners among African Americans increased slightly in 1990, perhaps due to a greater rate of out-migration among renters than among homeowners. This would be consistent with other findings that highlighted housing as a primary reason for moving among African Americans in California. Yeah, but where were those houses that were purchased? And who occupied those houses previously? These findings highlight the fact that home ownership is fundamental. African American out-migration is precipitated by lack of housing stability. Guaranteeing pathways and investment in home ownership is key to stemming the loss of African American population in San Francisco. And based on the key findings, the task force created policy recommendations to help stem the outflow of Black San Franciscans and entice more of the Black community to make a home within the city. So we're on page 56 at the top. These policies are categorized across 5 focus areas: housing, education, jobs, and economic development, culture and social life, and public safety, as well as quality of life. Housing. Expand home ownership opportunities for existing and potential African American residents. Stabilize and improve conditions in San Francisco's public housing. Promote public policies that support retention and attraction strategies. Preserve and improve existing housing stock and produce new affordable housing. I don't see on here where, if there are if there are homeowners who are non-black who own multiple homes, maybe some kind of limit on the number of homes you can own in San Francisco, where you are a landlord who is only renting to people uh, who are not African American. How about that? How about that? Multiple property owners, who continue to say no to black people, or who continue to just take up more space than they should. I'm just speaking personally here. You guys, excuse me. I got my personal opinions. I'm so sorry. I am so sorry, but there are just some things I've seen in San Francisco that I think about when I'm reading this report, reading through this report. Oh my goodness, it's triggering. It's triggering. Definitely triggering. Okay. I'm gonna stop now. Go back to the report. Okay, we are on. Gosh, education. Okay, so we're at the top of page 56 at education, and this will be the last page. Okay, we're going to end here. Education 1, strengthen infrastructure to improve pre-K through college achievement. Number 2, establish direct and effective linkages to community colleges and universities. Number 3, continue to support and expand programs for youth engagement. And now moving on to jobs and economic development. I think this is the drop down summary of, let's see here. Yeah. Goodness. Yeah, we've read through a lot of pages here tonight, so I'm just sifting through here to make sure that I'm putting everything into in context for you guys. These are the recommendations at a glance. Yeah, these are the recommendations at a glance. So on to jobs and economic development. Implement strategies that increase employment opportunities for African American residents, promote business development opportunities for African American owned businesses, and strengthen economic development activities focused on historically African American communities. Cultural and social life. Increase support to institutions that highlight African American art and culture. Increase profile of African Americans in San Francisco's tourism industry. Increase support to efforts that focus on creating a sense of place for African Americans within the city. Public safety and quality of life. Maintain funding and political support for violence prevention and stabilization programs. Number 2, expand support for victims of violence. Number 3, actively monitor and facilitate better relationships between communities, the police departments, and criminal justice systems. And 4, develop community supports for the reentry population to actively lower the recidivism rate. Though the plan had the political support of the current mayor, this plan had the support of the mayor, of the members of the Board of Supervisors. It still failed to retain Black San Francisco residents. Yeah, the trend of outmigration continued from 2000 to 2010 to 2020, from 7.8% to 6.1% to 5.7%, and lower now. In this study as well, the Black residents of San Francisco played no significant role in the process to determine what recommendations should be made. The next report was issued in August 2020. During a summer of civil unrest triggered by the murder of George Floyd, millions of people across the world took to the streets to protest against the injustice of police brutality and systemic racism toward African Americans. To address the structural inequities that exist within San Francisco, Mayor London Breed and Supervisor Shaman Walton announced that a portion of the budget from the San Francisco Police Department would be reallocated to support the African American community, a program now known as the Dream Keeper Initiative. Yes, and That's at the top of this page. Let me read through. Let's see. Just a little bit more. This initiative, the Dreamkeeper Initiative, also known as DKI, was announced at a time of reckoning where the nation was deeply fractured over its racial divide. In 2020, as the world endured the crisis of the COVID-19 pandemic, members of the Black community continued to endure harassment, abuse, and violence at the hands of police. The demand for justice and accountability after the deaths of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Elijah McClain, and more victims sparked outrage, protest, and policy conversations to end the perpetual discrimination. The Dreamkeeper Initiative was designed to repair the negative impact of racially disparate policies in San Francisco through the promotion of community-led change. And I am honored to be a part of the Dreamkeeper Initiative. So honored to be a part of that change. I was included in the storytelling and narrative shift cohort within the Dreamkeeper Initiative so that I could include media content that has not been traditionally included, and that is our voices, our faces, our experiences, our culture, our life, our voices, our realities. And, as a media professional working at the highest level in media as a news anchor and as an executive producer for Cron 4 Television, for KCBS, for iHeartMedia, for Westwood One, for Intercom, and all of the leading Nexstar, all of the leading media corporations in the country, going to that level and meeting the demands of national news standards, I realized that I was not using my skills and talents to the best of my ability. And I have always believed that growing up in Black media would serve me well. It wasn't just a Black thing. It wasn't because I am a racist. I was nurtured by professionals who owned Black media outlets. I was taught everything that I needed to know about the media. And I was disciplined and I received the highest level of education and guidance and mentoring that I could have received. Belva Davis was my mentor, Alita Carpenter, Jeff Harrison, Timothy Alexander White, Nick Harper. Did I say more and more? Carolyn Tyler, Barbara Rogers. Those were they are still mentors of mine who led me in the right direction. And Jerome Parsons at KPOO, Joe Rudolph, Harrison Chastain, Donald Lacey. I learned a lot from Black media professionals who came before me. And so I learned that our voices are voices that need to be heard and that should be valued. Our experiences, our culture, everything about being Black and African American in this country should be celebrated and should be honored and understood. And so that's why I continue this work, more than 35 years of work in multimedia. And so this was my contribution to the public, to provide nonprofit media access. And I am honored to do that with the Dreamkeeper Initiative and Clarity Media here on your favorite digital platform, whether you're on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter. I welcome you and thank you for your support. I'm here doing what I can to educate the public about what's happening with Black San Francisco and the Black Bay Area, for that matter. And if you're seeing this content and you'd like to contribute to what I'm doing here, not just financially, but with content, if you have content that you'd like to share, please reach out to me and I'll be happy to include your content, if it's worthwhile content, I've seen, some great things happen as a result of my platform being viewed by certain people and certain businesses benefiting from the content. Now, I don't have the largest following, and sometimes you don't necessarily need to have a large following to really be effective. Sometimes it only takes one or two. Sometimes it makes a difference with just 20 or 30, it just depends. But nevertheless, we should always have access, and we should have the ability to promote and produce and present our content and do it in a way that makes a difference for us. And Clarity Media is all about human stories and grassroots solutions. Okay, so this is inspirational content. This is informative content. This is not just wasted airtime that I'm producing here. So thank you again for joining me here for the second to the last reading of report number 1, presented by the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee. It is my honor to be able to present their first report to make the case for reparations for Black San Franciscans. And they've done that in this 60-page report number 1, I believe. But there's report number 2 that's coming up in June, and the committee will sunset their report and all of their reports and all of their work, and they will present the reports to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors and to the mayor of San Francisco, who hopefully will then pass it along to the governor of the state of California and to the Secretary of State, Dr. Shirley Weber. And then hopefully they will pass it on to the vice president, our former district attorney, Kamala Harris, and to the president, Joe Biden, to make it federal law, not just state law for reparations for Black folks in California, but reparations for all Black people who are connected to chattel slavery, who are descendants of slaves. Don't get me started, okay? I'm going to try not to include too much of my personal opinion. So I'm going to stop here and be that objective journalist as much as I can be, that is. All right. Thank you again for tuning into Clarity Media Grassroots Solutions-based human stories and content delivered just for you. Okay, I'll be back to say goodbye. And after this station identification break, I'll check the comments stream to see if I have any comments there. And any questions that you may have, you can include them in the comments. And I will pass the questions along to the chair and vice chair of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee for our future conversation that's coming up. Tap on the notifications bell on YouTube to make sure that you're notified about the next live stream as it happens, okay, so you don't miss anything. I'll be right back. Tune in weekdays to the Bay Area Mental Health Hour on YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. You'll find us covering issues surrounding your everyday coping skills and your mental health and wellness. And remember, your mental health matters as much as your physical health.
Black woman owned.
Tune in weekdays to the Bay Area Mental Health Hour on YouTube, Instagram, and on Facebook. You'll find us covering issues surrounding your everyday coping skills and your mental health and wellness. And remember, your mental health matters as much as your physical health.
name is Taylor. I'm the founder of Taylor J Collection. We are a women's contemporary clothing brand located right here in Oakland, California. The journey of a woman comes with many changes, and that's why we are very intentional about all of our designs and collections. We make sure to provide elevated comfort, sustainability, versatility, and of course, style. If you're in the Bay Area, come by, say hi, and take some comfy pieces home to add to your closet. Shop with us online at taylorjcollection.com.
Okay, there, everyone. Let me move this microphone out the way. It's so big. Microphone, crazy microphone. All right, Alicia Mayo here of Clarity Media. Just want to thank all of you for tuning in for this reading of the San Francisco African American Reparations Advisory Committee's report number 1. We left off on page 57. We just have a couple of pages left. I probably should be going through all of those pages. But again, if you've missed any of the previous recordings, you can find them on YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, and on Twitter. Look for Clarity Media, look for Clarity Conversations, look for Alicia Mayo. I am everywhere out there in the metaverse. You can find those recordings. If you're really interested and you don't want to read the report yourself, please just look for Clarity Media and tap on the link, especially just going over to YouTube. Go to Clarity Media, and the spelling is CLARI, which means bright, famous girl in Latin. Clary defines a bright, famous girl. The capital T represents my technical side. Clara Technical Media, Clarity Media. Human Stories and Grassroots Solutions. Tonight, I presented the San Francisco Reparations Report Unlocked. What do we know about the report? We're on page 57. Hopefully, you know more about the report now. Have you read the report yourself? If you did not read the report, if you have not read the report, you should read the report yourself, and you can go and find the report at this website here, scrolling at the bottom of the page there. Visit sfreparations.org to read the report yourself, or download it, get it in your hand and read it however you need to, or just listen back to my recordings of the report. And tomorrow I will wrap up the report at 5 p.m. I'll be back on at 5 p.m. to read the last few pages of the report. And then hopefully we will have the chair and the vice chair join us in the next couple of days or so. We'll reach out. I'll reach out to them, and we'll set up a time to have them come on and talk with us about this report. We'll go through it carefully with them before they release report number 2 in June. Okay. And then in the meantime, we have a very important rally happening on March 14th on the steps of San Francisco City Hall. We want you to be there to make your voices heard. Let your voice be heard on Tuesday, March 14th at 12 noon, as the Reparations Advisory Committee and other folks join together to support reparations on the steps of San Francisco City Hall. That's at 12 noon, the rally begins. And then at 3 p.m., there will be a special Board of Supervisors hearing that will be held at City Hall in room 250. And if you can join us in person, join us on Zoom. The meeting ID is there. It's ID number 2497-265-2335 pound, or call area code 415 665-0001. Let your voice be heard. Support reparations for Black San Franciscans. Support reparations for me. Yes, if you love me, show up on that date. I'll be there on the steps of San Francisco City Hall. Yes, making my voice heard. Definitely, and supporting the rest of Black San Francisco and our attempt to receive reparations. You know, it had to take Generation X and some baby boomers. It took the majority of us Generation Xers, though, I believe it was us. Yeah, because we don't play. Anyway, thank you all again for tuning in. I am going to stop here. I will see you tomorrow evening at 5 p.m. Again, at 5 p.m., join me for another reading of the report, the last few pages of report number 1. And I have another great interview coming up with District 10 Supervisor Shimon Walton. Yes, I will have that interview in its entirety coming up for you very soon. I have a teaser that I'll include a little bit later. Yeah, I've got a lot of great things going on. Clarity Media is doing some great things this season, and I want you all to see it, be a part of what we're doing here. So make sure you subscribe to Clarity Media on YouTube and follow us on Facebook and all that. Like and share the content here. I'll be back tomorrow night again at 5 p.m. to continue the readings. But for now, I want to just say good night and thank you again for tuning in. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
If you'd like to be a guest or suggest show ideas, drop us an email or a direct message. We'd love to hear from you. Clarity Media, human stories, grassroots solutions. Subscribe, like, follow, and share. The Bay Area Mental Health Hour, Clarity Conversations, and We the People. Building trust for the first time. Out of chaos comes clarity. Clarity Media.
Rock with a few, drip lit like a spot. Just winning, media life spinning, media life spinning. Listen, Clarity Media, Clarity. Hey, listen up. Black people. Ice clean, Smith & Wesson beam. It's a media theme. Clarity inspiring. Requirements never tiring. Laundry list you never miss. No wishing. Best media on display. Problem solved out the way. Magnitude Godzilla. Selling more power than Jay Thriller. Getting backlash. Cash stash so we can grow. Clear out on the air, you better go. Ancestors need us to be bold. Smart enough to live another day. Get it right. Solving problems quick without non-descendants up in our mix. Race soldiers getting help. Turning backs and watch and let you shoot. Clarity, bright, speaking truth. No help, have to help ourselves. Raised up if not for nothing else. T-technical, scientific, qualified. Always with it. Come through, rock with a few. Drip lit like a spot. Just winning, media life spinning. Media life spinning. Media life spinning. Just winning, media life spinning. Media life spinning. Media life spinning. Enemies out outside, enemies within. We gotta stop it. No one's a prophet. Burden heavy, broken levy. Meant to youth, now and forever. Politics is what she's speaking. Good mental health needed. Lift each other, don't trip. If your brother slip, extend grip. Make cash flip, pay each other. That's a good look, need each other. Deep inside, it's survival. Jump in together, no rival. All the content's original. If you hear it, listen and share it all. Then you should've played with all your heart. Clara sticks it to him like a dart. And had the aim of archery to mark. Melanin made them all envy. Experimenting, cause they saw me blow by a NASCAR race. Nah, better space boost pace. Yeah. Nah, better space boost pace, boy. Just winning. Media life spinning. Media life spinning. Media life spinning. Just winning. Media life spinning. Media life spinning. Media life spinning. Change that though. Clarity. Hey, listen. Clarity media. Clarity. Hey, listen up. Black people. Ice Clean, Smith & Wesson Beam. It's a media theme. Clarity inspiring. Requirements never tiring. Laundry list you never miss. No wishing. Best media on display.